For those who don't know me, hello, my name's James Kidd. I'm an employment partner at Mills Reeve, and I'm joined by Becky Wilson from Peer Resourcing, and together we run HR Energy. So for some of you, this might be your first event. So for some others, you'll have seen what we do, and you're all very welcome. HR Energy is a collaboration between Becky and I to put on events for local HR folk for entertaining and networking and collaborating and things like that. And we have a returning star today, and that returning star is Giles O'Halloran, and he's going to talk to us about digital well-being. And what was the other subject, Giles?
The remote working, the psychology of it. Thank you very much, James, and hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And it's delightful to be invited back by you both to talk more about sort of the remote working reality that we've all been experiencing of late. So this is really a bit of a hitchhiker's guide to help HR. So a bit of background to me, I am a freelance HR consultant, trainer and speaker. I work for the Cipd, so I'm head of business partnering faculty for the Cipd, and I've also been working with the Cipd recently to develop the new digital working program as their architect. And I've also developed their Future Work, Future of HR webinar, which is now available as well. Further to that, I've been working with the Cipd through the Future Learn platform, which is a MOOC, a massive online open course, where I've been the MOOC and course mentor on HR fundamentals, and supporting University of Exeter as well with their Future Careers program on digital workplace. Other than that, I run my own little consultancy where I provide three key things: HR coaching and development, so working with HR professionals and teams to help them sort of take the next step. I look at digital HR guidance and programs and solutions, so help people understand more about how digital HR is an emerging, practice. And then I also focus on things like outplacement and career transition as well. So working with organisations to build outplacement programs to support redundancy programs, and also with career transition on an individual basis. And to add to that as well, when I do get some more time, every month I'm a contributor to a magazine called Pathfinder. I'm a columnist and have been for 12 years, writing articles about employability, the future of work, and also emerging work trends to help sort of people who are resettling. So that's me. Quick intro, some of the organisations I've been working with over the last couple of years, and thoroughly enjoying my work as a freelancer. I do recommend it. And to start the ball rolling, when we talk about remote working, I've been a mobile worker for 20 years plus. So I've been thoroughly enjoying this remote working thing, but it is very much an individual thing. So I have to have a bit of a disclaimer as a kick-off. First and foremost, we have less than an hour, so I will not have all your answers. I don't have the answers of the world in terms of number 42, as when we talk about Hitchhiker's Guide. And I promise you that this isn't a silver bullet. What I want to do is use this time to be thought-provoking, to get you to think about some of the things that relate to remote working. I want you to reflect on some of the things that you've been going through over the last few months and what to do next. And this will also give you time to think and to share ideas. So hopefully that works for everyone in terms of our aims. So let's start the ball rolling. When we talk about remote working, I think we actually need to take a further step back, and that's look at what is Workspace. Because until we actually understand that and some of the complexities around how that has developed as a concept over the last century, it's then we start to put into context in terms of some of the psychology around how we work and the workplace itself. So the first question is, do you reminisce? Do you reminisce of that little desk that you used to go to and work, paper everywhere, cup of coffee, tea, whatever you had, people you could bounce ideas off? I'm sure as a few of you think, do you know what, I miss that. And some people do, some people don't, because it's all different things to different people. And in reality,
Charles, I definitely don't miss that. I saw a photo of my desk from a couple of years ago, paper everywhere, stuff, and I look back now and it's a clean desk every night, and that is just so much better mentally, I have to say. But
thank you, James. And I'm sure that the pink feather behind you does help you with your learning as well. So, and your work. But what I'd like you to do is quickly in the Q&A box is, when it comes to when you define your workplace or workspace or however you work these days, do you have a desk? Do you use a workspace? Do you call it a workstation? Is it a workplace? What do you call it? So let's put it into the Q&A. I believe you can open that and use it as your responses. So Amanda calls it a desk. My home office, my office. Oh, crikey, we're going down Serena. Office, my office, study, office. Goodness me. I haven't gone on a repeat loop here. Don't panic. I'm not at home, still want an official place at work. Thank you, Victoria. Good. Study, dining table. Melanie, I like your honesty. Thank you. We've got office I share with the dog. Okay, lovely. Office, desk, office, etc. So again, what in terms we call it very much differs. and David's been working at Hull for 12 years in the Home Office. So again, desk study, we all call things very different things. So if we look at, if we take time to outside looking in, the nature of the work that we've had since the 1750s, realistically, is that we started working on things like benches and desks. We've always had that as an operation. And then, so we had a massive open plan. Then we moved in the 1900s to more around corridor offices and ball pens. So be offices on the outside, ball pens in the middle where people would work. And it wasn't until the 1950s, movements like the Bürolandschaft, which is German, which means the office landscape, came into play, whereby people started to build flexible working islands where people had an open opportunity. And things have developed since then. We've got two key areas which most people have seen. First is the classic cubicle, which started back in around 1964 when Robert Probst and Herman Miller came together to look at building an idea called the action office, which was having 3 walls where people could then be flexible in the way they work. And the idea was to give people autonomy at work. Rather than having massive benches where people all work in the same way and the same thinking processes, it was giving them time and space to work flexibly. The problem is with that cubicle mindset, as you can see in this picture, outside looking in, we didn't use that idea too well. What we did was instead put people almost into battery farms. We closed them into as many smaller spaces as possible and created that kind of environment. That, and in terms of its psychological impact, of course, things like isolation, control issues, and silence. People couldn't connect and share and work together as they had done once. So that's one area. So it could have been really positive. It could be flexible. People could move around the office, communicate, but actually some of the behaviors out of it and the psychology was damaging. In the same light, let's flip the other side of the coin and move to what we call the open plan movement. So back in 1939, an individual called Frank Lloyd Wright, who was an architect, started looking at how do we build more open plan ways of working. The idea being, he strongly believed, and I quote him here, that bosses are fascist. That's what he said. And so what he tried to do was create these spaces which were more normal and natural. Therefore, he talked about tree-like forms. So you can see the columns here. So this is SC Johnson's HQ. They built Raid, okay, which was, is an anti-insect product. But what they did was they built these environments which were far bigger in terms of open spaces, natural light. As you can see the columns there, tree-like columns, etc. So the idea being that people have more space, they can communicate, they can work together, and therefore collaborate. But again, it hasn't been done right. Some of the psychology that we've seen as a result of this is that there's been increased noise, stress, people see blood pressures increase because they don't feel that they're in the open, almost like on the savannah. And it's led to conflict as well. So we've got 2 main areas in terms of cubicles where people have cut down into small spaces, which have had one psychological impact. And then we've had the other in terms of the open plan and how that's worked. What we've done is constantly, as with all things, is copied and pasted, and we've constantly done the wrong things. What we haven't done, and what we should have done, is we've lost thoughtful human design. And that's something we need to think about, is when we're looking at remote working, is rather than just giving people a laptop and say, good luck, we need to start to think about what does that mean in terms of the way people work, the psychology behind it, and everything else associated. So if we look at the sort of modern offices, many of them are like this. So ironically, we've gone back to an open plan office, but we've gone back to the benches that we've seen in the 1750s. And we can see some delightful things there, like ergonomic chairs and what have you. But there is one thing that has grown as a common accessory in these kind of offices, and this may be a clue. Can anyone put in the Q&A what has been the most common thing or common accessory you might find at a desk other than the laptop and the phone? What kind of technology? Does anyone know? And I know when I did a run through with this, James answered this straight off. Can anyone else give? Headphones gone, Chris has gone in there straight away. Anyone else? Mobile, oh goodness me, mobile phones, stress ball, Samantha, goodness me, you're on there, that's a good one. Mobile, screen, headphones. The actual answer is a plug. Yeah, it does help with, thanks Gabrielle, it does definitely help with energy there and power. Actually, it is the headphones. So ironically is that even though we've created these open spaces where people can work and encourage collaboration, people still use these delightful things in my ears to create space to think, to work, and to cut things off. So we've also almost created these virtual cubicles. So we have to think about that. So why do people do that? What's the reason for it? Is it because they want deep thinking where they work? Do they not want to be disturbed? Some people put on the headphones, they may not even be listening to music, etc. It's just cutting them off from the world around them. And that's because different workspaces and workplaces don't work for everyone. What we need to do is find out more about individuals, how they work, and ask that question when we're doing so, okay? So what that has led to is these modern hybrid workspaces now, where we see individuals working in collaborative spaces, spaces that allow for these water cooler moments, team thinking spaces, deep thinking spaces, where individual cubicles where people go to work. And that's fantastic. And that's been balanced against people being able to work mobile, away from home, etc. But then we all know good old 2020 happened. And the last few months, that has changed the dynamic and a lot of working. But the problem is that in many of the ways that we consider workspace, we haven't even dealt with the psychology of the previous type of workspaces, which have led to isolation, control and silence from cubicles. And we haven't dealt with the noise, stress, blood pressure, conflict of open plan before we've gone to people, yeah, here's something else, go home, work from home. And that leads to a whole new different way of working, potentially some psychological issues, which we'll talk about later. And that has meant that people have suddenly gone, do you know what, off you go, you're into the wilderness now. And that doesn't obviously mean a great thing for the way people work. And as a result, some people have lacked the policy and the support to do it. And what they've done instead is focus on that magic word, trust. You need to work from home. Good luck. We, wish you well, but also, we trust you to do so. And that means we've actually moved to an environment where it's more about practice versus policy, encouraging people to try it, to do it, and trust them to do so, which is something that we've obviously missed in other areas. And what the Cipd's pointed out in a recent paper is that actually working from home has increased digital self-skilling and capability by 33% across most people. So there has been some benefits of this. So what has happened to a lot of people is quite simply, a lot of people had to work where you can, okay? Just simply pick up your laptop, go home, work where you can, which means that people have to think about different things. And also people have had to go, well, we still need to work, but how do we connect with our colleagues? And it's about keeping connected the best way we can. So we've done what we can, the best way we can, with what we can, but it hasn't always worked. So my quick question to you in the Q&As, if we look at that, is let's reflect a moment on what's happened over the last few months. People having to work from home, work differently. What I'd ask you to do is, what are the problems that you've seen? Are these new problems, the ones we've talked about previously around isolation, noise, all those kind of things, or are there new problems? Pop your details in the Q&A, I'll flick through, see what you've got. So what kind of problems? Let's reflect on, because remember, we haven't even dealt with the problems from cubicle and open plan, and yet we've got more problems potentially from open work in terms of working from home. So isolation, back problems. Thanks Samantha and Kate, straight in there. Too much back problems, teamwork, too much noise. Yes, Florida, Penny, if you've got people around you. Isolation, thank you, Sarah. What other people got here? David, so two partners working from home, exactly. So that, conflict of space and time. Installation, ignoring people on Zoom calls. Yeah, unusual working hours. Always on, which we'll talk about later. Alex, thank you. Inability to brainstorm, problem solve, yeah, because innovation is a team sport, it's bouncing ideas. Work-life balance, yes, Jenna, we'll look at that shortly. Reduction in productivity, net problems, you name it, all these things are relevant. Too many team meetings, yeah, definitely. Work-life balance, but again, is it too many team meetings, or does it give you the time to speak to people, or can we communicate in other words? Work stuff, creating private space, not having the right working environment. I don't even have the right language here, so excuse me. Company cohesion, work-life balance. Goodness me, it sounds like we're having a bit of therapy here to download, which is exactly what we need. Because what we haven't done in the last few months is probably mostly been working straight away off the bat as hard as possible. But we haven't taken a step back and gone, actually, what are the things that we need to be thinking about? What are the things that we have experienced ourselves that we need to reflect on? Because if we understand some of these issues around the psychology of working remotely or working within a workspace, then we can start to build and balance that for what needs to go forward. So what I recommend you do is quickly flick through the Q&As if you can see them and see what other people have said, and then I'll move on. Okay, so good. So I like your thinking. You've shared some really good, important points there, and it's all about physical, mental, and also the technological things that you need to consider. So I appreciate you doing so. Thank you very much. So let's talk about that magical digital dream, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the ideal was that, if we could work anywhere, anytime, that would be great because we can customize our work. It means that individuals can perform the best way they think is possible, in the best way possible, in the best place possible. And therefore we will put a lot of emphasis on that magic word again, trust. So, in terms of what we need to think about here, it's about being able to work anywhere, anytime, and be tech enabled to do so. That was the dream. That's what we wanted. And that's what the push was for work from home when we talk about the evolution from teleworking and telecommuting to where we are today. And that has led to, what I've done for the last 20 years, which has been a mobile worker, and more of my work is now seen doing on this delightful thing as much as it is on my laptop or MacBook. The point here is that it means that people can be mobile, they work anywhere, connect through that technology, have the conversations, etc., be connected through various social platforms and work in that marvelous way. We've also hoped that people become the office worker. People don't have to work in an office or at home. Do you know what? We can actually create that space between our home and our work and actually go elsewhere and work in a place that could be still collaborative. We can do co-working in that kind of office space and work in different ways. And that's been the dream that people have aimed for. And that underpinned by this well-being worker mindset, the idea that if we've got these technologies and these apps that mean that we can work differently, surely we can actually embed that in the way we work to well-being. So using things like Fitbits and other data that we can generate to show whether people are working healthy and safely, obviously within GDPR, all that kind of stuff has been said, this is the ideal, this is the great dream. Because that means that with this technology and the way that we work, we can achieve this delightful world of work-life balance where we can pick up our laptop, do our work at different times when we're available. We can grab a quick snack here. And you know what? We'll go and spend some time by the pool or do something else as a result. And we can work anywhere, anytime. So brilliant, lovely idea. But the question is, and I over to you, has it worked? Do any of you see any of this? If pop it into the Q&A, because again, it's time to reflect. What has worked, what hasn't worked in that kind of digital dream? What are you putting? Let's see what you put. Missing the office time to time, must be concise communication that doesn't work like a dream. Thank you. Any other points that people have had? Doesn't work like a more specific. So some teams are not for others. Exactly, Kate. We're not all the same. The problem is we like standardization. Let's make everything the same for everyone when actually isn't the same for everyone. Able to get exercise at better time to suit me. Definitely, there's some work-life balance in some of this. Late working but start later due to no commute. Brilliant. I mean, it's really good points here. Thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts. What I suggest is, again, is have a quick trawl through and see what other people are saying, because it's important to consider what have we learned here, what has worked, what hasn't, and are there reasons for doing so. This is where we need to be thought-provoking and think about things differently. So the reality has been very different things to different people. First and foremost, this is one reality. If we look at what's happened with regard to people, people have worked where they can, when they can. It's not always ergonomically possible. It's about access to power, and it's about that suitable space. So as a result, people have just literally found a place where they can work and also tried to balance their life against what now people are calling work and non-work. So it's non-work, work and work, whereby you're doing your stuff as a day job, but then you've also got to think about the non-work, the other things you do besides. That could be looking after children, caring for other people, and it's about that balance. And that has caused further problems and stress and other things that we need to consider, because otherwise, if you've got a workplace you can go to, you separate the two and sometimes compartmentalize it. You can't do that when you're at home, obviously. And in the same light, working from home isn't heaven for most people. It can be a hell for some, and that is they may not have the space, they may not have the lights, they may not have the opportunity to escape or have the space to separate. In the same light, as we've seen, there's been an increase in things like domestic abuse and abusive relationships. These are all worries that we've got to think about. So this is a reality we've got to focus on, and it has led to that magic word isolation. A lot of people have felt that, as you have shared in the chat box, which I think is really helpful, isolation is better. People have had problems connecting, etc. when they do things. When do you fit in work? When do you try and connect with other people? And can you connect with other people? Because it just simply hasn't happened. So if we think about that as well, it's not just that ability that to be in a certain space, be isolated, potentially not have contact with people, but getting some fresh air and getting away has also been difficult. It's not easy. Consider the environment, the rules we have to follow. We've got to take that into context as well, because it's all about saying people work from home, but is that environment healthy? Can they escape from it into another healthy environment? And probably not. And as a result, because we push people onto more technology, again, the psychology we have to think about, there is too much data on too many devices. I don't know if many of you suffer from this, but you could have a Slack group here, a chat going on there, email over there, and your mobile phone ringing at the same time. Now, that's something that I was experiencing back in my days at IBM when I had a chat box open, email, mobile, and was working from remote location. I got used to it quite quickly and it worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. And again, it causes stress, further issues, people can't compartmentalize, people can't switch off, and that causes even more sort of psychological issues later. Because in reality, what we've asked people to do is take their work and take it home. The workspace has therefore invaded their home space. Some people have dealt with that, some haven't, but we need to take that into account in terms of, well, what does that mean? How do people adjust to it, and do they adjust? Because sometimes they can't get that balance or that blend. So going back to this point, if we think about those different things about isolation, all these negatives, what have you seen in your organizations? What kind of negative experiences? Let's start with that before we move into the positives. What kind of negative things have you seen? If you can share that in the Q&A, and I'll pull that up to the side here so I can see it. Excellent. So demotivation through lone working, spot on, Caroline. Excellent. Let's see what else comes up. What other ideas have you seen or things have you experienced in terms of negatives? Because again, this is time to reflect. We rarely get time to think about things ourselves, what's happened to us, what's happened, and this isn't the opportunity in this session to do so. So let's able to help colleagues, spot on. Thanks, Gabriella. People being negatively impacted on mental health. Thank you, Kate. Excellent. Host meetings, far from power, exactly. Sore eyes after it. Yeah, eye relief is an important thing, Helen. Great, Quinn Smith, it's all flying up here. Increased absence, yeah, well-being is increased, yeah, mental health, well-being, exactly that, Jessica. Excellent ideas. Junior members of the team often working from a bedroom or shared house, exactly. Bad Wi-Fi, not absorbing info, exactly, and under stress to do so. And there may be multiple people also on that bandwidth as well. Zoom fatigue, exactly. And I know Zoom, I'm sure, will be in the Oxford Dictionary next year as a verb, before, more than ever. The question is, what happened to Skype? That's gone because it's been embedded in MS Teams. Lack of comms, lack of physical activity, struggling with new technology. Excellent. All the key things here. Brilliant. Okay, well, keep sort of sharing your ideas, and I recommend that you have a look at some of your other colleagues here, because the important thing is, going back to psychology, is you're not alone. The experiences that you're having, the experiences that your people are having are similar to others. And one of the things that we are missing from remote connections, and we need to sort of think about, is making sure that we do not feel alone. And more so for HR professionals who have, for the last 6 to 8 months, worked hard to try and keep people connected. The problem is employees and managers always come to HR. Who's HR gone to? That's become a problem. And I think one of the things we need to reflect on and use spaces like HR Energy and other communities out there is to support each other. I'm a strong believer that the Cipd is more than a professional body. It is a community of practitioners, and therefore we should be using that as a way of networking, sharing, and working as comrades in that respect, okay? So that's what I want you to reflect upon. Again, this psychology piece is important because it's not just understanding the workspace and how it's evolved and the different ways that that's happened and the mental health issues we haven't dealt with in those kind of environments. We just simply then taken them out of the office and put them at home and locked them away. But we need to open up that door. And let me give you a little bit of reality check. Let's rewind, as I like to say, going back here. I want a crowd say boat selector, I'm sure some people might say. Moving on, in terms, we go back to the days of consent. When email first sort of really kicked off in the 90s, everyone thought that, it became adopted. But email has become an issue, not just because we're overloaded with email, which in itself become a mental health issue. The problem with email is we never taught people to use it properly. And what we didn't say is we're actually hiding problems with email, because if you had an in tray in the 80s and 90s full up with folders and paperwork, you might go over to someone and say, are you okay? Do you have enough? Have you got too much work there? Can we help? But how many of you have got email boxes that may have 800 plus unread emails? That's invisible. The problem is invisible. We haven't even dealt with that before we even moving in to the remote working and problems that we have otherwise. And in reality, and James probably has this as a lawyer, is that most of those emails are virtual folders in themselves because they have multiple BCs, CCs, responses, etc. So before you even tried to think about that, those 800 emails that sit in your inbox may be 800 folders worth of information. If we're not dealing with that previously, we need to start dealing with that now. And this is where we have an opportunity to reflect. And this is why I want to give you some thought-provoking ideas and thoughts, as well as some frameworks later to start to think about that reality. Now, there are some positives. So don't get right on. It's not all doom and gloom, okay? Some recent survey data, so let's look at the stats, have said the following. So the IOD, the Institute of Directors, has said that actually employers have found some really positive outcomes of working from home. And it's not purely cost-based. What they're trying to do, though, is they believe that 75%, so that's 3 in 4 employers, are looking to either maintain or increase the ability to work remotely, not necessarily from home, but work remotely. In the same light, CBRE, which is a very large real estate organization global, they did a survey across, I think it was 32 countries. They had over 10,000 responses, 32 companies, 10,000 responses across 18 countries. What they found that was organizations saying, well, people actually, if we let them work remotely, 90% have said that their work has been the same, if not better. Productivity has increased. In the same light, they've said that 85% of people that responders, both employers and employees, have also said that they're hoping that it will stay the same in terms of there'll still be that ability to work from home more significantly as a result. Whereas the 60% said, on top of that, that they're hoping that there will be an office as well. It shouldn't be all about home, because actually we still need to connect with people, and hopefully when the virus does diminish, we'll have the opportunity to reconnect. But we will redefine offices as co-working spaces, as community and collaborative areas, not simply desks, which I asked you right at the beginning, where people focus on the work in a workspace. It's about breaking down those walls and creating a more human workspace, which hopefully will also change the way of psychology of work that we do. And finally, to add to that, Cipd has also produced some recent reports, which they've done for the for UK ministries. 61% have come back and said their work-life balance has improved as a result of this work-life balance. Some organisations said that 43% of those have said that their collaboration between people have increased because it encourages people to connect, to use technology. And also that ability to take a step away from the office and not be disturbed in things like an open plan office means that there's been an increase of 38% in terms of focus. However, we have seen an increase in mental health issues, 47% as well, and 33% of managers have said that, do you know what, I don't know how to manage people remotely. That's 1 in 3, and also the increase of well-being of 1 in 2. So let's reflect on that. What does that mean? What I'd like to think about is, if we think about mental health of our employees and our managers, what kind of things have you seen? So have you shared some great ideas about isolation, all that kind of stuff, and where you work? Again, in the chat box, what kind of mental health issues have you experienced or seen? Whether it's yourself, and feel free to be honest. There's no judgment here. It's about being honest and sharing. What other things have you seen from your employees? What kind of things are you seeing? Depression. Thanks, Kate. I think worst case scenario, we're seeing that as well. Lone working, anxiety, addiction issues. Spot on, Melanie. Exactly. Agoraphobia, Kate. Yeah, that fear to actually go out because of the virus scenario and the fear and all sorts going on. Burnout. Exactly, Jenna. Because people don't know where to switch off. Exactly that. Isolation, FOMO, spot on, Chris, fear of missing out. They're constantly on and switched on. Healthcare workers, anxiety, thank you, Jenna. Lack of focus because they're doing too much, they're not quite sure having the guidance because everyone's doing as much as possible. Ian's come out, not from employees, but seeing lots of short fuses. Yes, because people are under stress. They're not sort of managing the way they used to. Disengagement, Jessica, yeah, because they're not physically there. People don't necessarily feel that connection. And some people need that in their work. Sharon's come up with working too many hours as they can't get away from workspaces, always in their home. Exactly. Going back to my point originally, that invading the workspace. People can't get the difference. People live alone or lonely, missing social interaction work. Spot on, Kate. Kimberly's come up with lack of confidence and anxiety due to not speaking to many people in the office. Yeah, so you come back on yourself, Kimberly. I think that's a natural thing, is we lose that social ability. And as a result, we rely more on technology. And we've already complained that people aren't communicating enough. So great. Feel free to share more ideas as you progress. Because it's about sharing, but, flick through the ideas and see what you should, see what you agree with and say to people, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, because again, this is an opportunity for us to share as a community, to think about what does it mean for us, what have we seen? Because in reality, all these things can happen. The worst case scenario, of course, is self-harm and suicide. People have actually taken their lives in different working environments. And in the same light, we've got to be mindful that self-harm is not simply someone cutting themselves. It could be people turning to alcohol more as an escape, or it could be simply taking prescribed drugs in order to manage anxiety and depression. Again, that impacts our workforce and the way people work, and impacts the psychology of that remote working piece we need to consider. Okay, so let's move from realization and all the other bits, and hope the tempo's going okay, and I'll give you some food for thought in all this. This is where we as HR professionals, people professionals, we can be a digital enabler. We can do things differently. So let's look at some aspirational ideas to focus on. First and foremost, what we want people is to be like this. And I'm not talking about just spinning everywhere and anywhere. We want people to be energized, but to have that daisy of calm in the center. We need that balance in terms of We want them to work well, to be productive, but also to feel appropriate in the way that they are and the way they're acting. So there's a little triangle that I created a few years ago to try and help people think about how they develop policies and practice. So from the basis, everything you should do should be legal, okay? We need to think about the legals of everything we do and how we work. The next step up is about ethical. Is it the right thing? How do we work in this environment? What should we do as a good employer, as a colleague, etc., with the people we work with? And the final one at the top, which is really key, is sensible. What's the right thing to do? Because you know what, it makes sense. Sometimes we should make common sense, common practice. So when we're looking at that wellbeing workspace, we need to think about what does that actually mean. So if we have people working remotely, there has to be a balance of three things here: physical, mental, and legal. Firstly, the physical environment. Is it the right environment? Do they have a set out space? Is there natural light or a light source they can use? What is the position of their working practice in terms of, are we giving them some training and support to achieve this? We also need to think around things like eye relief. Are they taking breaks from the screen, looking away, etc., because your eyes will be impacted? What's their access to power and other things across the office that they work in or the space they work in? What kind of view do they have? Do they have plants? Is there food, water accessible? We should be helping provide some guidance around what a good workspace looks like and providing the guidance, support and training, both virtually and also in terms of other forms as we can do that. Then we have to think about the mental piece. You know, what's the noise levels and the stress, the environment around them? How can we advise them on that? Can we advise them to separate some space to allow that? And then same like allow them to step away. We should be advising them, helping them with these kind of things to help with the mental picture. And finally, the legal bit. What we've done is set loads of people home to work from home and actually consider things like, have we done a risk assessment in terms of, is it safe to work in that environment? Have we helped them and provided guidance? Have we assessed that? Have we given them more insurance? Because actually some of their office equipment that they take home work from may not be covered under their insurance. What have we done around that? And have we looked at the cost of actual working from home, like heat, light, power, connectivity, all these kind of things that we're getting from our employees for free? What are we doing around that? So we need to think about that and whether we need to change or amend some of the ways that we practice. In the same light, you know, we need to be encouraging work-life blend. I'm not a fan of work-life balance because I think in reality, it's very hard to compartmentalize and be so binary. It's about giving people the opportunity, helping work with them to find a blend that works for them. Not about balance, it's this and it's that, because standardization doesn't work. It's around how does that work. For some people, a balance may be appropriate. I'm not cutting it out, but I'm saying we have to be more, I think, wider thinking, provide some ideas around how do people blend their work and their non-work work and their living as well within the same space and opportunity. And a key thing, which I think you've rightly said here, be careful. We need people to switch off. And that means we need to give them the guidance, we need to give them encouragement, and I think we need to say to them, you need to switch off your work, you need to switch off your technology, and you need to get some sleep, because some people just aren't doing that. So leading to exhaustion and further issues. So these are kind of things I think we should be helping focus on as HR professionals with the people we work with. So my question to you is, we can do these various things, but how can we keep people connected? So the technologies we have from a remote working perspective, what kind of tools would you use? How would you work? Ali, that's a good question. I think people are, and I think people should respond to that one. Constant reminder, step away from your machine. Thank you, Sharon. I think that's the right thing to consider. I think I have to do that as well. I have to look at things. Lots of sleep issues, good. Okay, let's go back to the question here. So how can we keep people connected if they're remote working? Okay, Chris, come up with there. Brilliant. Sleep, so face-to-face issues, guidance, no reason not to meet. Yeah. Communication, okay. Good one. Communication's a big term. How do we do that? Okay, brilliant. Amanda, check-ins, one-to-ones, encouraging sign-off, good. What other things can we do to keep people connected? Open Zoom in the office, don't make your condition work. Spot on. Thank you very much. Online coffee meetings, end of day catch-ups, yeah. Good, excellent. Any others before we move on? Informal chats, brilliant. Okay, we do end of week drinks, excellent. Friday quiz time, Sharon coming to work with you. Weekly comms, good, Jenna. Quiz, water cooler via WebEx, I like that. That's a nice woo woo woo. Excellent, I'm liking that one, Jenna, great one. Any others? Online tea breaks, good, David, like that. Yes, good, Ian. I think that still should be encouraged if possible and safe. Don't forget those don't have teams, exactly, Chris. The specialists that might be isolated, what can we do there? Virtual coffees, Kate, brilliant. Okay, excellent. So have a quick look up at those and see if you can go, oh, that's a good idea. Because again, this is about sharing opportunities. It's about us sharing thoughts and ideas. And as I say on Blue Peter, here's some I built earlier. So what we've got here, first and foremost, are the various ways of technology. We can create web chats. We can chat about anything and everything. Special interests, what are you doing at the weekend, what's working for you. We can create virtual roundtables to get people to talk about key themes and ideas and share their thoughts. Going back to some of your thoughts, 15-minute drills. Start the day with a 15-minute all hands. How are you? What are you doing? What are you doing? How are you doing it? The Japanese use a great system called Chorai, which means in the morning they'll stand up and they'll go, right, this is our plan for today. This is our focus. This is what you should be doing. This is where we should be going. It gives people that focus at the beginning. In the same light, team talks, and they spend time to go around the table, create spaces online for people to chat about things other than work. So let's move on to the other side. I'm getting to there, Twabine and Caroline. It's not twerking, so don't panic. What we've got here is we've got hackathon as the first one. If you've got a problem or something in there you want to solve it, throw it out there onto space and create hackathons. So people in little teams and environments create solutions together. And you can do that on a tool like Slack, and you can call it a Slackathon. So hence why that's there. You can have an unconference. So you can have multiple people like this, sitting at home, sitting in a place that works for them, wherever that's best, and they can start to share ideas and have guest speakers come in. So what you do is people feel connected, they can learn and work with each other. In the same light, online jams, put the idea and say, look, we've got ideas, we want to work differently, we can do things differently. Create an online jam where people then share their ideas, just like you're doing in the chat currently. And yes, I'm now with Twabing, Caroline. So with Twabing itself is a platform whereby you can create and generate conversations around a hashtag, that you can generate a conference, you can create some conversations that can be released online, which improve your employee value proposition and other things. It is a tool, it costs money, that one I'm afraid, but I've seen it used for learning and conferences in a really powerful way. And the final way is looking at our work environment. So can we create office work environments where people don't necessarily have to work in office, they can work in coffee spaces and encourage them to do so, but again, give them support and training to do so. Can we look at hub spaces or co-working where people can come together and use those at different times so we can rota time to be safe and socially distanced but working in a different environment? Classic drop-ins, which organizations were, encourage P2P working, peer-to-peer. So rather than managers having to do everything, get them to pair their teams off so they look after each other and work together more effectively. And we've all probably heard of the apps like Meetups. Well, can't we change that to Meetups? Create virtual Meetups where we're creating online communities where people share their interests, ways of working, doing things. So again, bit of food for thought, hopefully something you might be able to take away. Because our role is effectively being a digital partner, and we can do that. So let's first consider how we do it. So first and foremost, what we can do is reconnect managers. Let's get them away from the classic command and control and get them to be the facilitators, coaches, and mentors of tomorrow. Let's create a virtual employee experience, because what they bring to the business is what I call the software of the business. It's the soft skills that make the business work in terms of how they motivate people, but it's about spending time with individuals. It's about understanding their preferences, their communication preferences, helping them establish some kind of routine that works for them and managing it with them. It also is talking about managers should be creating these delightful 4 Rs in terms of the ability to speak to the team and get them to reflect. Not just the managers, but the team in terms of what has worked, what's not, what can we learn from this? Create that trust and connection in different ways of working. And that also means, relaxing and refreshing. Get your people, get the managers to work with their people. This is us working with the managers, not separately. This is where we become a partner to help managers manage more effectively. So get them to understand how their people relax and encourage that. In something like refreshing, because people take time off offline, they can have other interests, they can develop other skills, they can do online learning. What can we do to help them do that? And finally, relationships. How can managers help the team connect on and offline, and more importantly, encourage people to step away from work and maintain those relationships that maintain our sanity with our friends, with our family, all those close things that matter. We should be providing some support and guidance and helping managers do this. And that means also then we need to think about redefining work time. And by that, I mean working hours, because we don't all work the same way every day. We need to consider that. So can we consider things like work windows, whereby we create an open time and space and we trust people, the magic word, trust people to work in different ways and manage their time within that work window? Can we create environments which is a core time, flex time environment? So we say that during the day, you've got 4 hours of core time, so we know everyone's working in the same way, but there's a couple of hours each way of that you have time to play with, and we can give people that opportunity, which in some ways, in terms of caring responsibilities or school time, may help those people working from home who have other commitments. But it is all down to trust, of course. The next one is, do we redesign jobs and work? You know, can we look at what we're doing? Because we need to look at new jobs for new norms that are developing. So different ways of working, different jobs, you know, not the classic job spec. Can we create almost like a Venn diagram that looks at skills, knowledge, experience that blend in different ways? And how do we encourage people to do that? But we have to be careful, and let's step back in terms of the legal piece. If we are going to redesign jobs and work, and people are already doing that, that may involve an amendment to current contracts and working practices. We may need to consult, we may need to consider that, and therefore that's something we should be helping the business and managers with. And again, because people work in different ways remotely through different technologies and in different ways, we should create people some, you know, give people a bit of breathing space and allow them to change. And that means reframing performance, what's expecting, and respecting that difference and looking at more an outcome focus. But again, we can't, managers, not all managers can do that alone. We have to help them understand what is it that you want from your team? How can we help you build that? Because again, we then get deemed as real business partners, as digital partners, and as credible, trusted advisors. And as a result, we need to take our own medicine. It may be that we need to do a bit of click and collect in HR, rethink what we do, and think about, do we change our HR portfolio? What are the skills that we need in order to support this new way of working? Because not only do we have to support the psychology of remote working through the platforms and the various things that we've got as tools that managers and employees may use, but we need to also take those on board, because if we practice them, if we become champions of them, people look to us as credible partners, as credible advisors on what works. And again, we can build better ways of working that way. And the outcome of all this, I hope, is that magic word resilience. Because what we're doing is we're looking at the current way that we're working, we're looking at the future way that we could, and we're trying to build these frameworks that change attitudes, develop knowledge, and create those strategies, those changes, that bridging between now and next, that then create resilience and the ability to adapt. Okay, so that's the kind of things I want you to think about, and I hope you'll take away and go, oh, some ideas for thought here. Because again, I don't have all the answers. I don't promise to be. I'm an enthusiast rather than expert. But I wanted to take this time with you this afternoon to give you the chance to have the conversation, to have some ideas, share some of your pain, as much as, you know, the other stuff as well. But, you know, these are things that I think we need to think about as a little framework for success as a result from HR. Let's focus on 4 T's. Let's look at training. We have rarely trained people to work remotely and flexibly. We've given them a policy, but we've never showed them the practice. Let's look at how we do that. Both managers, employees, supporting the managers to even train and coach the employees. Let's look at providing that, some learning opportunities. In the same light, we have to use technology more effectively, and we should be doing that. Rather than relying on just the business, we should be doing more in that. We should have some more digital practices. So let's look at the way that HR can support with what we call VEX, a virtual employee experience. How can we create touch points where people can use and connect with HR to help them through this remote working? Let's also not forget we've got talent in the organizations we work for. The people that we work with may come up with brilliant ideas and different ways of working that we should listen to and that we can help with. But it is all fundamentally underpinned by that magic word, trust. That willing to be vulnerable to someone else, that's what trust is. We should be helping create that, because realistically, the last few months, we have trusted people to get the work done unsupported. It's been there. Let's not lose the momentum on that, and let's thank them for that and use that for better things. So as a close, before I move to questions, I'm more or less on time, so I'm happy with that. I'm sure James and Becky are as well. Here are 3 sort of links that you can go to. So the first one I found is a free course for you, okay? I've actually done it. It's a free remote working course that can be done through Coventry University. It's a 2-week course. Takes about 3 hours each week, but in reality, depending on your learning style, you don't sit there for 3 hours. You can do 20 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It's what you take from the course. It's a free course. Please go away and do it. It's very good. The next link is the CIPD's course on digital working. That's the one I've just built with the CIPD. So have a look at that, because we take people through the digital working journey, everything through why work has changed digitally, all the way through to becoming a digital partner and digital catalyst and how we work. And the final thing is me. So if you want to connect with me and find out what I do, that's my homepage in terms of the work that I do, and you can drop me a mail through that. Or of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. Some of you already have. I know I've seen some names across the list, which I'm really happy to have joined today, and I'm sure they'll either give me their advice or other ways of working as we progress. But as a result, you can connect with me and feel free to do so. So it leaves me to say, before I hand over, thank you for listening to me waffle on. I hope it's been energetic but useful for some of you. And finally, please just stay safe out there, as they say, going back to good old Hill Street Blues. So it leaves me over to any questions. So Jessica's got one: ideas on how to implement a VEX on virtual working and engagement. Okay, so virtual working and engagement are quite sort of big themes. What is there anything specific you can start with? Because what's the outcome you need, Jessica? That's the thing we need to look at. With anything we look at in terms of developing training and platforms, what's the outcome we desire? What we can do is, there are various technologies and ways of doing things. It comes down to also, how do your people learn? What I think we need to do is move away from the classic courses and look at resources, potentially as a way of working. One of the things I think could be worthwhile is, and I've done this, and you can look me up, look up Go to Work and Giles O'Halloran on YouTube. I built a YouTube channel. It took me an afternoon. I populated it with, I've curated and collated various sources on future of work, future of HR. I use it for the HR business partner training I do. There's no reason why we can't, as HR professionals, start to build videos, because that's the way social's gone. It's no longer text-based, it's all visual. That's why Instagram's kicked off for the last 10 years, because it's more about visual and videos. So why can't we create videos on YouTube that help people go, you need to think about this, have you thought about that? I call it 1 minute, I can't even call it, 1 minute of wisdom, whereby if we give people 60 seconds to share what's worked, what hasn't worked, and why, or we can also give them what do you need to do, how do you need to do it, where do you need to go for support, those kind of things. We can work differently, whether it's using Slack channels with YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. We can connect people that way. Not everyone's going to be with us on the journey, but it's about creating the opportunities, encouraging people, and the more people that are involved, even better. Hope that's helped, Jessica, and give you some ideas for food for thought. Chris, those that like the idea of networking, connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's get to it. Yeah, I like it, Chris. Let's crack on. Excellent. Sam, ideas on how to minimise friction and frustration with those working from home, as they have been instructed, and those still based in the workplace and operations. Go back to this P2P mindset, Sam. I think it's a really good idea. Peer-to-peer. Can we not partner those people that are working in that way, encourage them to work and share their ideas and keep a visibility? One of the things on psychology of remote working is that there's this fear of missing out. And I'm not just talking about the social media world. It's the fact that because they're not present and not seen, they're then forgotten. And we need to make sure that some of those people in the workplace are our ambassadors of those people that are working away. So I think there's an opportunity for us to create those peer-to-peer connections, that one at home, one away, whereby we connect those people so they start to share experiences and other things. Because those people working remotely can look at other things that those people in the office may not get an opportunity to do. So we can create an exchange environment that way and create stronger teams as a result. Hopefully that's a bit of an answer and thought process for you.
One of the things that we're suggesting on that is that when you've got people in the office and people at home, whereas we've had perhaps everybody at home up until recently, is you still have a Zoom meeting with everybody dialing in individually, rather than some of the people together in a room in the office and then everybody else individually, because you always have a them and us. The people in the room can exchange those glances. There's comments that people can't hear. It's less good, isn't it? The quality is less good, and it avoids more of that them and us.
Exactly, and that goes back to that fear of missing out. So you've got here about HR, and suggestion on how to optimize your onboarding experience in a digital way. Organizations are already doing this, and I think there's lots there you can do. That starts from the interview process through to onboarding as well, where you can use a YouTube channel, build videos, or even via virtual learning environment, which people will then become part of, and they can learn that way. And also creating things like a Slack channel for newbies, so people can come in, they can start to sort of look at, share ideas, what's it like, who's starting when, create a conversation, and then buddy people off virtually as well to have those conversations. So again, we can do that P2P piece as well. So what we can do is create different things here through different ways of learning and different ways of interacting, whether it's through video, connecting via technologies and platforms, creating user groups, things like LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, whatever you use. There are loads of ways we can do that. It's just making sure that we connect the dots and create a virtual experience as that happens, so that we do not lose people along the way and maintain that human connection. So hopefully that's giving you some food for thought.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Giles.
My pleasure.
I agree. Superb.
Thank you, everybody who's joined us, and particularly those people who've never been to HR Energy before. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you for your lovely messages coming up. Oh, look, high-end presentation, of course. Any feedback would be amazing. We do have another event that we're going to be doing in December. We're having the lovely Carol and Charlotte join us from Mad HR. We're going to be doing a topic around how, as HR professionals, you can work with your senior leaders and really influence at strategic and board level. So if you have any ideas or any questions that you'd like answered in that session, please do let James or I know. And again, just thank you, Giles, and anybody who wants to stay on, please do, and we'll answer any more questions.